Okay, so although a lot of algebra students could solve this equation, matter of fact, you absolutely must be able to solve this type of equation to pass algebra. The problem here with a lot of students is they really don't understand what they're doing. They're just kind of following a procedure or a recipe, but they don't understand the underlying concepts, and that is detrimental to your ability to handle more interesting problems. Okay, you really want to try to understand what's going on behind the steps that you're doing, especially when you're doing any sort of mathematics. And in this case, we're solving a algebra equation. But this type of equation, an equation here is what? Well, these bars are absolute value. This is an absolute value equation. Okay, a very, very basic type of equation that all of you out there taking any sort of algebra course will need to understand how to solve. So let's just kind of keep it simple. If you can solve this absolute value equation, we got the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 10. Well, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll show you the correct answer in a second here, and then I'm going to go through the solution. But more than that, I'm going to really give you the underlying kind of understanding of the bigger picture when it comes to absolute value problems, right? This is really important stuff, especially for those of you that are studying any sort of algebra. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And really, it's my true passion to try to make learning math as easy as possible. So if you are having any difficulty in mathematics, you need any kind of help or assistance, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, don't forget to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. Okay, so you don't even really need a calculator here, but if you feel like it will help you, that's not a problem. So again, absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 10. What is x equal to? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the answer. The answer is actually two numbers. X is equal to 7 and x is equal to negative 13. Okay, so how'd you do? Well, if you got this right, let's celebrate by giving you a nice little happy face, an A plus, a 100%, and multiple stars so you can brag to your friends and family that indeed you are a certified professional expert in the area of solving absolute value equations. Now, I don't know if you are really a complete expert or certified professional in this area, but if you were able to solve this problem, that's obviously a good start. Okay. Now, do you know why you're doing what you're doing? That's kind of the better question here, right? So let me ask you this: for those of you that got this right, could you tutor this? Could you give a class on this, a little mini lecture, and teach somebody like, hey, you know what? I don't know anything about absolute value equations, and you would say, listen, I am a professional expert in this area. Let me teach you. Here's what's going on. One, two, three, four, five. This is how you do something. A good way to know, um, a good test to kind of ask yourself whether, in fact, you truly understand something in mathematics or actually at anything at that is if you can teach something. Okay, if you know something so good, okay, and you can teach it, then that's a good indication that you really do know what you're talking about. So a lot of you out there that maybe like some sort of video game, I'm pretty sure you are an expert. Oh, I'll teach you everything about this video game. This is how it works. Da 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 da. Here's the little strategies. Here's the techniques. Same thing with math. Okay. All right. So I bring that up, or I'm kind of emphasizing that because sometimes students, this is very common. You get overconfident. Okay. Get overconfident. Like, I know this, but you really don't know this as well. So just ask yourself, could you teach this? If you could, then that is a great sign that in fact you know what you're talking about. Okay, so here is the equation. Absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 10. So we're not going to start with this equation. We're going to do a simpler version of this equation. Right? And we're going to first make sure you understand what absolute value is. So let's go down here and take a look at this equation here. The absolute value of x is equal to 10. Now, x is what? Well, that's a variable, right? But it just represents some number. So if I asked you, hey, the absolute value of some number is 10, what is that number? Okay. Well, hopefully you would say, "Oh, okay, I know what it is there, Mr. YouTube Math Man. It's 10." Okay, because the absolute value of 10 is 10, right? So that makes sense. And hopefully, those of you out there, if you're obviously watching this video, have a basic understanding of absolute value. But that's not the only number where we take the absolute value of a particular number and get our a 10 as an answer. We can also take the absolute value of negative 10 and our answer would be 10. Okay, so in this case, x could either be 10 or negative 10, right? Because if we plug in a 10 for x or a negative 10, we'll get 10 as our answer. Okay, so we really have two answers to this basic absolute value equation. And this is kind of my first major concept that I want to really um, emphasize is when you have an absolute value equation, all right, when you see an absolute value equation like this one here, you're going to have two solutions. You're always going to have two solutions for this very simple reason right here. In this little basic absolute value equation, we can come up with two different values and get the right answer. Now, why is that? Well, let's go ahead and talk about that right now. So we just said that the absolute value of negative 10 is 10, and the absolute value of 10 is also 10. But why is that? Well, the absolute value, by definition, is the distance a number is from 0. Okay, so here's our little number line here. Here is 10, and here is negative 10. How far is 10 from 0? Well, if you had a little tape measure or ruler, it would be 10 units away from 0. Okay, well, how far is negative 10 from 0? It's the same distance. Remember, we measure distance with a positive value, okay, or displacement. So from this distance from here to here is the same as here to here. So distance is going to be measured in positive units, typically speaking. The distance from negative 10 to 0 is the same distance as 0 to 10. Okay, that's why when we take the absolute value of a number, you're really kind of asking that number, hey, how far are you from 0? Hey, negative 10, how far are you from 0? I'm 10 units. Hey, 10, how far are you from 0? I'm also 10 units away. Okay, so that's just a quick rehash of absolute value. So again, remember, there's always going to be two solutions to an absolute value equation. So now I'm going to show you the actual steps to solve an absolute value equation. But if you understand this part of this, what I'm talking about here, the steps I'm going to show you here right now are going to make much more sense. You're going to be able to kind of connect the dots, if you will. But before I show you those steps, I want you to take the step of subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so and hitting that notification bell. You have no idea of the positive impact this has on my YouTube channel. Matter of fact, anyone who watches my videos, I look at as my own math student. And really, I'm trying to make my math classroom as large as possible because math is one of these things that a lot of people struggle with, and it doesn't have to be that way. It kind of really does break my heart when I see students that are just down and out about math. It's not, 90% of the time, it's not the student's fault. Okay, they're not getting, the instruction that works for them, clear and understandable instruction. So I am out there trying to help as many people as I possibly can. But by you subscribing to my channel, that definitely helps me out. Real quick, I have 2,000 plus videos on my YouTube channel. I cover basic math to advanced math, calculus, and everything in between. And if you're interested in my full best course instruction, you'll find links to that stuff in the description below. But back to the problem. Okay, so now that we understand these concepts about absolute value equations, we can kind of look at this scenario. We got the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 10. So I'm looking at x plus 3 and I'm like, you know what, x plus 3, I know you're trying to disguise yourself. You are really a 10 or a negative 10. You must be, right? Because the absolute value, whatever, doesn't make a difference what it is. If the answer is 10, the only way I can get the absolute value of anything, just think of it like this. The absolute value is equal to 10. Whatever you plug in here, we already talked about, it can only be two values. If you're going to get the answer of 10, it can either be 10 or negative 10. So you're looking at x plus 3, and you're like, yes, I see that you're trying to disguise yourself as either a 10 or a negative 10. So x plus 3 must be equal to 10 or negative 10, right? And we already kind of talked about that there's only two values that make this statement true. Okay, if the result of taking the absolute value of a number is 10, well, you can only get that way, or only get that result from negative 10 and 10. Okay, so what you're going to do when you're solving an absolute value equation, and there's other, I'll show you here in a second after we finish this equation. There's definitely more complicated absolute value equations, but in this case right here, what we can do is take what's inside the absolute value function and set it equal to both the positive and negative of the value that we're looking to solve for. Okay, so x plus 3 in this case must be equal to 10 or negative 10. Okay, so instead of just memorizing this, now you'll understand why. Right? You're like, okay, I get this, and you'll understand, kind of the underlying reasons. So now we just have to solve these basic equations. X plus 3 is equal to 10. All we have to do here is subtract 3 from both sides of the equation. We get x is equal to 7. Here we'll subtract 3 from both sides of this equation, and we get x is equal to negative 13. And again, we have our two solutions to this absolute value equation. Okay. All right, so if you understand this, then you're going to definitely now truly be a certified professional expert in the area of solving absolute value equations. But as I told you, there are much more challenging absolute value equations. You can have things like this, 2x absolute value. Let me kind of write this a little bit neater. So I'll just give you an example. That's something like you have 1/2 absolute value of 2x minus 3 absolute value plus 7 is equal to, let's say, 16. Okay, so in this particular case, we're going to do the same thing, but before we do that, what we need to do is get the absolute value function all by itself on one side of the equation, and we need to get just one number on the other side, and then we're going to take the same steps. So in this case, what you'll do is you'll subtract 7 from both sides of the equation first. We do that, and then we'll go ahead and multiply both sides of the equation by 2 to clear this fraction out. What you never do when it comes to absolute value equations is use the distributive property. Okay, this is an absolute value function. Don't confuse this with parentheses. So, this problem that we just solved here, this absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 10, is a basic problem. There are other things you need to kind of practice when it comes to solving absolute value equations to really kind of get that full certification professional expert in this area. Again, in math, what you want to do is get great instruction so you understand the concepts, right? So that's what I try to do is deliver kind of clear and understandable instruction, right? Break it down so you really do have a comprehension. Then what you want to do from that point forward is start to solve easy equations and build up your skill sets. You have to practice, right? This is no different than trying to learn any other skill. Let's suppose you're trying to get better at basketball, okay? Would you watch the TV all day, watch the NBA or college basketball? You'd be like, look, I'm watching all this TV, I'm watching all these professional basketball players, and therefore my skills are going up. That's not the case, right? That is not the case at all. So you watching me solve an equation, that's great, and I certainly appreciate it, but you're not going to develop those skills unless you practice, okay? Now, same thing here. Let's kind of talk about practice, right? Let's say, okay, I'm going to practice basketball. Here is my, little hoop here. Oh, look at me. I just made one basket. Yeah, let me shoot another one. Oh, I made 2 baskets. Well, therefore, I must make every single, a basket that I attempt. Is that the case? No, right? So just because you are able to solve 1 or 2 problems, you have to solve a wide variety of problems. Remember, mathematics is a collection of skills. You have to, it all depends how badly you want to learn math. There are no shortcuts, okay? But if you kind of put in the work, all right, you'll be proud of the results. That I can assure you, okay? Never ever give up. No one listening to this video or watching this video, is not smart enough, not capable enough to really go as far as you want in math. But does require work and effort, and most importantly, it requires great math instruction. Okay, so if you need additional help with absolute value and there's other things about it. There's actually absolute value is a big topic. There's absolute value inequalities. There's absolute graphing absolute value functions. So we're talking about algebra. So if you need additional help with this, I do have a lot more videos on absolute value on my YouTube channel. But you'll find absolute value, full chapters of this stuff in my algebra courses. Again, you can check those out by following the links in the description. But with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.